So really, it's impossible for you to be judged, because if you're being judged, that person is not judging you because they don't know you. No one knows you. Maybe you don't even know yourself. Maybe there's like egoic stuff going on and you're living according to the false self, who you think you are, but not who you really are. So that person is not judging you. They're judging, or they're taking a perception of what they have of you, and they're projecting that. And we're calling it judgment, but we're saying that that person is judging you, but they're not. They don't know you. The other thing is, judgment is typically when someone has these different parts of themselves that they don't like, and they project that onto other people. So that's why judgment is really revealing, because it shows you where that person currently is in their consciousness and how they understand, what's going on and how they're choosing to deal with their own shadow. That's what it's pointing out. But they're not judging you. And when you get this, you're free, because you realize, well, wait a second. Why do I give a damn about what this person thinks about me? Why am I so caught up in their opinions and their views and their judgments on me? Because you can't touch me. You can't judge me. You don't know me. That's the mentality to have, because that's liberation. And then you're free to be you. And that's when things get really magical and interesting. That's when you start to follow your bliss unapologetically. And you're living from this realm of total wholeness. And it's just like, you look back and you see all the times where you took things way too seriously, and you realize that, I was living my life according to the views and thoughts and opinions of other people, when really none of it mattered. Because why am I so concerned about whether or not other people like me, when, really these people don't even like themselves? And that's why they're quote unquote judging me. But they're not really judging. They're not judging you, at least. Yeah. And so what happens is, if, let's say you're someone who's dealt with a lot of that, okay? Other people projecting, this is what we're going to call it. We're going to say it's other people projecting their own shadow and the things they don't like about themselves onto you. Let's say you've experienced a lot of that. Okay. Well, what happens is, if you're taking that and you're really accepting it and you're believing it, which, by the way, that's really easy to do. So I've experienced that, I've believed the lies, I've listened to the judgments, and I've allowed all of that external projection to become a reality for me. And it's really affected my life in many ways, until I learned what it really was and until I transcended it. But ultimately what's going on is, when you go through any kind of, when you experience that, the subconscious takes all of that information and it starts to accept it. And when the subconscious accepts other people's judgments of you and starts to make that part of your egoic narrative, then what happens is we start to experience all of these different thoughts, but it's more of like mental chatter. It's like this continuous stream of mental chatter. Some call it the voice in your head, and I've made other videos about this, but the voice in your head is essentially the manifestation of this deep subconscious programming that has come from years of receiving all of this projection from other people. And the subconscious mind takes that, like I said, makes it really believable. And then the voice in your head is just reinforcing this programming, this conditioning. And we listen to it all day long. And we think that this voice is our voice, but it's not. Because think about it. If you're listening to the voice in your head, then that means that you can't be the voice in your head. If you're aware of the voice in your head, then you are not the voice in your head. So you have to treat it like it literally is this separate thing, this entity, this other voice, like an external voice that you would hear from someone else in the world. Like, that's how you have to treat it, because that's the first step. That's the awareness of, wait a second. Yeah, I have this voice in my head, but this voice is not me. And it's full of shit. Like, it's not telling me the truth. It's repeating these lies, and it's coming out with all this stuff, and it's going off this programming. But this is not reality. This is not who I am. This is just someone else's projection that I've accepted, that I've created, or that my subconscious mind has created into my story, into the way things have to be for me. But it's not true. And I think it was Michael Singer in his book The Untethered Soul. He wrote about how, I think he calls the voice in the head like the inner roommate. It's like this, yeah, you're stuck with it to a degree. It's this voice that you have, but it's not your voice. So that's really helpful. I think that's a good way of understanding it, like an inner roommate, somebody that's just always there, talking, continuous chatter. But it's up to you. You get to decide whether or not you're going to accept what it's saying and continue to believe it. And what happens is, when you start to notice that, okay, I have this voice, it's not my voice, and you start to really analyze the root of what it's saying, what you start to pick up on is how the majority of whatever the voice in the head is saying, or what it typically leans towards, are things that have to do with judgment and self-criticism and condemnation and negativity and disempowerment. And so you're listening to all of this, and if you're not aware that this is not your voice and you believe it's you, then what happens is there's thoughts that start to come from this voice, and you start to dwell on these thoughts. The thoughts turn into feelings, and the feelings turn into emotions, and that's what we embody. And then that is what ultimately brings our vibrational frequency into these lower states. And that's what creates these certain patterns and cycles and situations and circumstances in our perceived outer world that keep repeating themselves. That's the process. That's the sequence of it. So what it amounts to is starting at the root and realizing that, okay, I understand that this subconscious programming is running my life most of the time, but there's actually a way to rewrite the script. There's actually a way to reprogram the subconscious. And the key with this is understanding that this voice in my head is not me. And if I just choose to say no, or if I just choose to just ignore it, or just let it, see, it's not about trying to control the voice in your head. You really can't do that. So it's not about trying to control it. It's not about trying to stop it. It's about just treating it like it's another person talking, and it's just like, yeah, say whatever you want. I don't care. And it's keeping that awareness, that ever-present awareness. And whenever you notice that you're drifting off into like a negative thought pattern because you've been believing the voice, you just become aware of that. And the moment you become aware, you're free. And you return back to presence, and you return back to the awareness that you are, that is beyond the voice in your head. It's beyond the mind. It's beyond all the different thoughts. It's beyond the subconscious programming. And it's inherently free, because that's the truth of who you are. And when you start to go beyond the mind, and you start to like embrace the infinite awareness that you are, there's this authenticity that starts to flow through your human incarnation from that infinite awareness, because that infinite awareness is infinite potentiality. So it's magical. And that's like part of stepping into your authenticity, is realizing that you're free to be who you are. And if you're going to continue to live according to other people's thoughts about you, and their views and their opinions on how you should be living, all that is doing is preventing that free-spirited soul that you are from expressing and embodying the truth of your nature, which is why we're here in the first place. This is like, If you think about it, we incarnate to express the divine in a unique way that no soul ever has. And that's why authenticity is so powerful and so magical and so transformative, because authenticity is actually like the highest level on the vibrational frequency scale or whatever. So when you're living your authentic self, like that is going to come with a high vibe naturally and effortlessly. You're not going to have to try to raise your vibration or pretend to be someone you're not so that you can experience some kind of high, some kind of bliss, some kind of joy for life. No, the joy for life is only found in being who you really are and living authentically. And as a result, like I'm saying, your vibrational frequency is going to be high from living from that place. And yeah, it's like when you're going with the program, or you're living from the small self, the false self, the ego, yeah, it's just you have to realize what's actually going on. You're believing these lies, you're believing these different stories about yourself that are literally coming from someone else's own fears and insecurities and anxieties and like all of that negative stuff. That is what you are allowing to run your life. But it doesn't have to be that way anymore, because like I said, number one, you're inherently whole, complete, and free. That's the essence of your nature. Number two, no one's judging you, because they can't. And think about that for a moment. Think about what it would be like to live knowing that not only is no one judging me, they can't judge me. And what I'm calling judgment is just the projection of someone else's own stuff that they're choosing not to deal with, and they're choosing not to, do the inner work, the shadow work for themselves. They're choosing to project that onto me. But that's like, you know what? Like, that's their choice. And I'm not going to allow that to control my life. Why would I? No one knows who you are on that deep level except for you. And if you're worried about, if I actually step out and express my authentic self and live fully and freely and all of that, well, I'm worried that if people see the real me, they're going to judge me then. Well, again, okay, even if the real you is starting to be embodied and expressed and all of that, and people are judging that, even with that like they can only perceive you at the level of consciousness that they're at. And so the level of consciousness that they're perceiving you at, if they're judging you from that level, it's not going to be the truth. It's still going to be a perception of you that is distorted and mixed up in their own inner shadow and egoic shit that they haven't worked out. Yeah, so that's going to fog the true perception of you. Because judgment is always associated with the ego, which is false self. It's not the truth. And it comes from separation consciousness. So keep that in mind. Like, even when you start to live freely and from your authenticity, you don't have to worry about that. And at that point, like when you actually step into freedom and you're living authentically, you don't care about what other people think, because like, okay, let me say it like this. At that point, you've got an option. It's like you keep living authentically and experiencing liberation, or you go back to the old ways where you're allowing other people to control you and you're having to like fit their boxes and their constructs of you, and you're miserable and you're limited and you're not being the real you. Like, would you rather go back to that, or would you rather have this new way of existing, this new way of being that says, I don't give a damn I am free. Why do I care about what they're projecting onto me? That's them. That's what they're working out. And I don't, like, it doesn't matter. I'm free. I've been wanting to experience this freedom. Now I am. And there's nothing like it. And there's so much clarity, and I can see things from a much bigger perspective now. And I'm experiencing this expansion of consciousness. I have heightened awareness. I have greater intuition. I have more creativity. I have more love and joy for life and simplicity and like the common and mundane and ordinary elements of life. So I'm in heaven right now. I'm living in heaven on earth. Why would I allow anyone's judgments to bring me back down into hell? That's the question. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a simple but profound shift in realizing that judgment, no one's judging you. They're not really judging you. Remember that. Because judgment towards you, the real you, is impossible. In that realization, if you just meditate on that alone for a few days or for a few weeks, let that be your mantra or whatever, I can say that in and of itself, when you get that, when you experience that directly, the inherent liberation, the inherent wholeness that you are, will bloom in that moment. And it will show you that you've always been free. You didn't have to attain this freedom through some form of external validation. No, that freedom has always been there. And now you're going to channel that through your authenticity. And you're not just going to be free. Now you're going to get to live free. And you're going to see how beautiful and incredible the journey really is from this point on. And you're going to see how the universe starts to open up these doors and things start to unfold, and you're not taking life as seriously anymore. And you can breathe, you can relax, you can dance, you can laugh, you can cry, you can sing, you can make a garden, you can climb a tree, you can run in a field and feel the wind blowing through your hair, and do really whatever you want. And not feel like condemned by following your intuition or by following your, that creative idea you've been storing on the shelf for years, but you haven't allowed it to come into fruition because you were so worried about so-and-so and what they would say and how they would judge you for writing that book or whatever it is, writing that song, producing that song, Yeah. The human incarnation does not last long. So while we're experiencing this round, this journey, we might as well experience it fully, freely, and unapologetically. Because I can already tell you, I can look back and I can see how there were times in my life growing up where I limited myself because of someone else's judgments. And now I'm looking back and I'm like, damn, like what the hell? Why in the world did I not do this or that because of someone else's I'm perceiving that they're judging me and what they would think, and why was I allowing that to limit me? And I know what that feeling feels like. It sucks knowing that like I didn't step into something that would have been a natural expression of my authentic self because of someone else's opinions. And so I can only imagine what that would be like years from now, seeing that, whatever, like I spent decades living from that mentality. And by the way, like it's never too late. It's never too late to step into what I'm saying today in this video. So just know that. It's never too late. The time is always now. And there's this profound newness that comes with the ever-present moment. The moment is always new. But yeah, just think about that. What I'm doing right now, my journey, my experiences of leaving what I have left and my old spiritual tradition and fundamentalist religion, and stepping out and doing the things that I'm doing now, like I said, and the writing and the making these videos out in the woods talking about the shit I'm talking about, like all of this stuff is me doing what I'm talking about in this video, because the only way I was going to get into all of this was by completely letting go of this whole judgment paradigm and allowing the external stuff to control me, to control my life, and what do you know, I'm doing what I love to do. I feel like this is the most authentic expression of my soul, and I can feel and taste the wholeness. I can experience the bliss of that. And at this point, I don't care what other people think. I don't care. It's not bothering me, because I'm living freely. And my passion now at this point in life is to show other people that this can be a reality, that living freely, living from wholeness is a reality, or it can be a reality for each and every being. But it starts with understanding what I'm sharing today about judgment. Letting go of that belief. You can do it. I'm here for you. And you've got this. So I think that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.